Tianzhao is God's anger, Yueshu is God's compassion, Susanohu is God's strongest weapon for wielding swords on earth, and I, who possess all of this, am God. The traveler with the Sharingan, as the only human being extraordinary, arrived in Tokyo. Shenluo Tianzheng, Tianzhu Zhenxing, Earthburst Tianxing, and infinite moon reading create one miracle after another. In this world, I am the only one who can stand alone, appearing wholly in front of others until I suppress the whole country. Keywords of the novel. I am the Hokage in Tokyo with no pop-ups. I am the Hokage in Tokyo. Download the complete TXT collection, and read the latest chapters of the Hokage in Tokyo. Chapter 1. 001 Uchiha in Tokyo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1001 Uchiha in Tokyo. Yujibo. Yujibo Ming. My current name is actually Yujibo Ming. Did I wear it inside Hokage? On a double bed in a private hospital in Nakano Ward, Tokyo, a black-haired boy with a bandage wrapped around his head murmured with a hint of confusion and fear on his face. The surname Uchiha is well known in the ninja world, but the fate of the clan is also very tragic. Uchiha, a small character whose name did not appear in the original work, may end up with a whole family. But looking out from the hospital bed window, the modern streets are bustling with traffic, steel buildings are rising from the ground, and the fashionable attire of men and women in the 21st century is very different from the ninja world in my impression. Can't it be crossing the world line after reaching Boruto? At this moment, more memories gushed out from deep within the body, intertwined with memories of the past and present. The young man felt dizzy and bloated for a while, and it took him a long time to recover. This is indeed Tokyo, an island country, with world history, geographical environment, and cultural customs very similar to those of the previous life, but some places have undergone changes. For example, since the war, many famous creators in the field of literature and art have been different from their past lives, and there is no classic manga like Hokage. So this cannot be the ninja realm on the timeline of the future, but rather the modern Tokyo of a parallel world. It turned out to be just a coincidence. My surname happened to be Uchiha. In this lifetime, my family and I are all ordinary people, and we don't know how to train our swords or suddenly make a fire at home. Our relatives, surnamed Uchiha, who lived in a village in Shizuoka Prefecture, are also rural people who make a living by farming and crafting handicrafts, rather than ninja groups. After roughly sorting through his memories, the young man finally felt relieved and showed a smiling face. It can be said that I have regained my life. In his previous life, he was just an ordinary worker. Although he loved the manga Hokage very much, who would want to live a peaceful life but wear it into the dangerous and war-torn ninja realm. He is still a member of the Uchiha clan, whose names have already been registered in the Yenwang book. In fact, the island countries of the past did not have the surname Uchiha. This generation's surname is Yujibo. It seems like it's just a coincidence in a parallel world. I didn't expect that after 15 years of traveling to this world, I would awaken the memories of my previous life. But how did I send myself to the hospital? As soon as the thought came to mind, Yujibo Ming felt a piercing pain on his left cheek, accompanied by a chilling aura that penetrated deep into his bone marrow, numbing half of his face. Midnight. Black sedan. Car accident breaking down old apartments. Crime scenes. Trying courage. A woman in a white dress. It turned out that on the night before entering high school, I was wandering outside without a place to stay at night when I suddenly ran into the main road and was hit by a black Toyota Century that passed by, flying more than 2 meters away. At first glance, it may seem like Yujibo's head was caught by a door panel in the middle of the night, but in reality, it's not like that. Uchihiro's home is in Yayoshi-cho, in the southern part of Nakano-ku, Tokyo. A few days ago, a murder occurred in a cheap apartment building not far from Nakano, where a woman was killed by an old lover who followed her home. When Yujibo Ming, who is 15 years old this year and will only be a high school student tomorrow, talked about this online, he accidentally revealed that the crime scene was not far from home. He was then encouraged by several unscrupulous netizens to go to the scene and take a few photos back. Questioning, mocking, and provoking, after netizens made several rounds of arguments, the young and energetic man actually ran to the crime scene in the middle of the night. Then I saw that ghost thing. In my memory, Yuji Boming bypassed the security line at the entrance of the apartment and sneaked into it. Originally, he only planned to take a few photos at the entrance to communicate with others. Before leaving, he pushed the door by chance and opened it. He saw a woman in white who looked like a ghost. That thing made a strange gesture, and then in the next moment, Yuji Boming felt his body lose control. He left the apartment hand in hand and foot like a puppet, and arrived at the roadside, waiting silently without saying a word. When the vehicle arrived, he pounced forward like a suicide. Chi. The final echo was a piercing and sharp break sound, and memory came to an abrupt end. Fortunately, the car braked in time. After being knocked down, Yuji Boming miraculously suffered a minor injury to the back of his head. After a hospital examination, he applied some medicine, wrapped himself in a bandage, and underwent a simple 2-day recovery before being discharged from the hospital. But it also unexpectedly awakened memories from previous lives. Surprisingly, this kind of ghost still exists in this world. Although the ninja realm is already dangerous enough, Tokyo in this parallel world is not a good place either. The stabbing pain on his cheek intensified, making it even more unbearable for Yuji Boming. He quickly picked up his phone and looked carefully at his face. On the mobile phone screen, the handsome face of a young man with black hair is reflected, his eyes are like stars, his nose is straight, and his facial features are as handsome as statues. It is a face worthy of the surname Uchiha. There is only a flaw on the white wall, and a small thumb-sized black spot appears on the left cheek, vaguely resembling a woman's lip print. This is not a birthmark, nor is it a bruise caused by a collision. Hiss, isn't this mark marked by that ghost thing? I was controlled to crash and didn't die before, and I'm likely to find it again in the future. Yuji Boming, who was familiar with horror film routines, looked at Blackspot on his phone and felt powerless. Although it is now 2 p.m. in broad daylight and the sunlight shines directly through the window into the ward, Yuji Boming still cannot feel any warmth, but instead has a chilling feeling. Since there are evil spirits in this world, there should also be yin and yang masters, exorcists, and so on. It's just that they won't be able to find them for a while, so they can only go find monks. Should we hurry to Asakusa Temple during the day to seek a talisman? Just as Yuji Boming was urgently seeking medical attention and lost in thought, a light screen suddenly appeared in his mind. ID, Yuji Boming, Level. Lower Ninja, Skills. Right Will I LV1, 0/10, Fire Escape LV1, 0/10, 3 Body Art LV1, 0/10, Is this the system? Wait a minute, this homepage looks a bit familiar. Isn't this the Hokage game I was playing in my previous life? Is it true or false? Isn't this an illusion caused by the impact of the accident? Yujibwa hesitated and tentatively formed a yin seal. Unexpectedly, the next moment, some energy in his body suddenly became active, and a hot and dry heat surged up his esophagus, uncontrollably rushing out of his mouth. A spark over 10 centimeters long coughed out directly from the mouth. Cough. Yuji Boming was choked and coughed repeatedly, with a blister on the corner of his mouth, but his face showed an indescribable excitement. Yuji Boming quickly looked at the other end of the double patient room. Lying on the bed was an elderly man in his 60s or 70s who looked somewhat thin. His cheekbones protruded on both sides and his face turned blue. He was now unconscious and asleep, unaware of what had happened in the room. Taking a deep breath, Yuji Boming slowly closed his eyes and then opened them. In the crimson eyes of the young man, there was a black jade swirling around the pupils. Is this the Sharingan? And with the previous Spitfire, I not only awakened memories from my past life, but also obtained the system converted from the previous game. Yuji Boming looked at the phone screen with great interest, admiring these strange eyes. The Sharingan can be said to be the most promising bloodline boundary in the ninja realm. Once the Sharingan evolves to its limit, it can gain the power to reach the peak of the ninja realm. This force, even in modern society, is capable of shaking the entire world. With a single sword, Susanohu split open the mountains and oceans, and with a gentle wave, he effortlessly chopped down the Tokyo sky tree like harvesting wheat. The Earthburst star and the heavenly obstruction star appeared simultaneously in the sky over Tokyo. This scene made Uchiha feel a little excited and unbearable just thinking about it, but the sudden stabbing pain on his cheek quickly brought him back to reality. As if reminding him not to be complacent. Although obtaining the system was great, I am now entangled by evil spirits. Single Goyu's will eye is only an observation eye and does not increase combat power. LV1's fire escape cannot even use the C.level fireball technique. Can I use my current ability to fight against that evil spirit? After having the system, Yuji Boming gained a bit of confidence, not as anxious as before, but he still felt a bit uneasy about dealing with the evil spirits he had encountered before. The fire escape of LV1 is still a bit weak. Hee. Suddenly, on the other side of the ward, with a few rapid sobs, the old man convulsed like he had epilepsy, sweating profusely. He grew his mouth and made a suffocating hee sound. Is this old man suffering from a nightmare or a sudden illness? Let's call the nurse over first. Yuji Boming's thoughts were interrupted by the old man. Just as he was about to press the call button at the head of the sickbed, he saw a black tentacle stretching out from the old man, which was over half a meter long and covered in tumors. Then more and more black tentacles emerged from the elderly population. What kind of monster is this? Yuji Boming's vision has the bonus of writing will eyes, and his vision is excellent. He can even see a few black tentacles and several sarcomas on the tentacles clearly, which makes him surprised and somewhat nauseous. My head was slightly dizzy, but as I had just opened my writing wheel, I couldn't control it well, and my eyes returned to normal. At this point, looking back, there were no longer any black tentacles visible, only a vague black mist enveloping the old man's head. Opening the writing wheel eyes again, the field of vision seemed to have been filtered in an instant, and some things that were previously invisible appeared before. More than 10 black tentacles emerged from the elderly population. The tentacles, which were as thick as fingers and about half a meter long, were like octopus whiskers with tumors and dripping with unknown viscous liquid. Some of these tentacles tightly wrapped around the elderly person's face, while the majority twisted in the air, waving their teeth and claws, making people goosebump at the sight. The old man suddenly jumped off the hospital bed and stumbled towards Yuji Boming on the side of the ward. Damn it! It was obvious that the visitor was not kind. Yuji Boming quickly lifted the bed sheet, wrapped it around the old man's head and face wrapped in black tentacles, and then ran towards the door of the ward. End of this chapter. Chapter 2, Chapter 002. The world is so dangerous. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2, Chapter 002. The world is so dangerous. The old man possessed by the tentacle monster pulled open the sheet, and by this time, Yuji Boming had already slipped to a place only one step away from the door. Seeing that he was about to slip away, another thick black tentacle emerged from the old man's body, popping out like a frog's tongue and trapping Yuji Boming's left wrist. Damn it! Yuji Boming could only turn back and pull the black tentacles on his wrist a few times. The force from the other end of the tentacles was not strong enough to pull Yuji Boming over, but it was tightly tied to his wrist and couldn't break free for a moment. At this moment, more and more tentacles emerged from the elderly population. But these tentacles did not bounce out like before, but twisted their limbs in the air. Yuji Boming keenly realized that the tentacle monster was about to abandon the old host and transfer to itself through the tentacles wrapped around his hand. No one can accept being possessed by such a monster. Since they cannot escape, they can only grit their teeth. Yuji Boming has formed another Yin seal, and the chakra inside his body is condensed in his mouth. At this point, the tentacle monster almost escaped from the old population, with its tentacles twisted and twisted like a large ball of black yarn. The tentacles wrapped around Yuji Boming's wrist became tighter and tighter, and then shrank. The tentacle monster, which had formed a ball, shot out and attacked Yuji Boming's face. Fire escape. Yuji Boming, who was already prepared, opened his mouth and spat out a fist-sized fireball. The fireball hit the bullseye, and the flames immediately ignited the tentacle monster. A heat wave surged in the ward, and the tentacle monster was instantly burned to ashes, leaving no trace of ash. The half of the tentacle wrapped around Yuji Boming's hand also fell off and disappeared after twitching a few times. Killing completed, checking rewards, Renew *10. Upon hearing the system kill prompt sound, Yuji Boming looked inside at the entrance of the ward for a while, carefully inspecting the up, down, left, and right sides of the ward. Only after confirming safety did he enter the ward and help the elderly person who had fallen to the ground. Although the old man's breath was weak, it was still relatively stable and his complexion had improved slightly compared to before. Carefully helping the old man onto the hospital bed and covering himself with a blanket, Yuji Boming sat down on his own bed, still feeling a little palpitated. This world is so dangerous. First, there are evil spirits that can manipulate others to commit suicide, and then there are tentacle monsters that parasitize the human body. They have encountered 2 supernatural events in a day, which is really unlucky. This world should not be like this. In the past 15 years of life, I have never experienced anything unusual. Apart from publishing some urban legends that catch the wind and shadow, the news media has never officially recognized the existence of monsters and ghosts. But is the official really unaware of this? Yuji Boming doesn't think so. There is a saying that if you find a cockroach inside the room, there must be more cockroaches hidden in the corners of the room. Behind evil spirits and tentacled monsters, there must be more supernatural events. With the control and supervision of modern state machinery over all aspects of society, even no matter how much corpse food is vegetarian, it is impossible to be completely unaware. The island government can maintain the surface stability of society, leaving ordinary people unaware of it. 80% of them still have some trump cards hidden in their hands, such as the Supernatural Countermeasures Department composed of high monks and young masters, which specializes in handling such special events, but has not been made public to the public. Ordinary people do not have channels to contact relevant departments, otherwise they may be able to use official power to solve their own problems. The piercing pain on his cheek began to flare up again, and Yuji Boming gritted his teeth to endure the pain, opened the system, and checked the harvest this time. Renew *10. The Hokage game played by Yuji Boming is a card-style game where characters are collected. Regardless of their rarity, the initial level of the game characters obtained is lower ninja, followed by middle ninja, upper ninja, shadow level, and 6 Dao level, totaling 5 levels. The character level is linked to the skill level, and 3 LV1 skills can be upgraded to LV2 to promote the medium ninja and unlock subsequent skills. In addition to relying on training to improve proficiency, skills can also be upgraded with just one click by using Ninyu. It's the item dropped from killing the tentacle monster before. 10 ninja jades can fully enhance the skill proficiency of an LV1. It may not be effective to pray to the gods and Buddha at the last minute. Instead of waiting for that evil spirit to knock on the door in the middle of the night, it's better for me to try and kill it myself during the day. My fire escape can eliminate monsters, and it should also be effective against evil spirits. Fire escape LV2, 0 out of 100, Yuji Boming thought fiercely, as he had no more choice but to fight against the evil spirits who had targeted him. After elevating Hueduan to LV2, his courage also increased significantly. Nakano Ward, Tokyo, Nakano Police Station. A middle-aged man in his 40s with a slightly gloomy face and a beard, holding a report in his hand, looked incredulous. How could it be that the perpetrator of the Xiaozongai apartment murder committed suicide at the police station last night, or did he strangle himself? Shinohara Yuji is a police officer at the Nakano police station. He has been in charge of a murder case these days, and the case is not complicated, it's just the emotional entanglement between the courtesan and the destitute guest. The perpetrator surrendered to the police after committing the murder, with clear evidence and physical evidence. The case was likely to be concluded, but it was fraught with twists and turns. The perpetrator committed suicide in the detention center. Although not a detective or ace police officer, Yuji Kanbara is also a veteran in the industry for 20 years and knows very well that it is impossible for a person to strangle themselves. But the upper authorities were indifferent to this. After all, those who died were marginalized members of society, indicating a hasty resolution of the case. But Shinawara Yuji refused to give up on this and wanted to investigate again. After checking his watch, it was only 3:30 p.m. now, and he had time to drive to the crime scene. Quickly arrived in front of a dilapidated 2-story apartment. This is a 2-story apartment with a civil structure. According to the information, it was built in Heisei 6. In order to resist earthquakes, the island country has a service life for the residents. The civil structure is 22 years, and the reinforced concrete structure is 47 years. However, this apartment is undoubtedly close to or even exceeds its service life. So the rent can also be imagined, incredibly cheap. However, the apartment is too dilapidated and not many people are renting it. Apart from the murdered Miki Kakura, there are only 2 tenants on the first floor. After the murder case occurred, the 2 tenants immediately expressed their intention to terminate their lease. Kamehara Yuji parked his car on the street, and as soon as he got off the police car, he suddenly felt a resentful gaze fixed on him. Kamehara Yuji immediately lifted his head and saw a woman in white flashing through the window of the leftmost room on the second floor of the crime scene. Is it an illusion? Kamehara Yuji was covered in cold, with a drop of cold sweat oozing from his forehead. He leaned against the car, his face quite ugly. How could such a thing be possible? He must have been working on the case overnight these past few days, not sleeping well and experiencing nerve failure, which made him misread. Kamehara Yuji lit a cigarette and threw it on the ground to stamp it out after only a few puffs. It's not necessarily because he misread it. There might be someone in Miki Okakura's room now. Suddenly running to the scene of the crime, perhaps related to the circumstances of the case. Yes, that's it. Yuji Shinawara has already leaned towards the second possibility in his mind. Passing through the cordon, the entire corridor was dark and almost devoid of sunlight. Yuji Kamehara climbed up the second floor alone and arrived at room 201 rented by Miyuki Okakura. The room is already locked, but yesterday Yuji Kamehara asked the landlord for a spare key. As Shinawara Yuji took out the key and prepared to open the door, as soon as he approached 201, an unprecedented sense of crisis struck like a tide, causing his hands to tremble and the key almost fell to the ground. The last time this feeling occurred was during a routine street inspection 3 years ago, when a seemingly harmless office worker handed over his handbag and without warning, pulled out a folding knife and stabbed him. And this time the warning was much stronger than the previous one. Yuji Kamehara's gaze had sharpened, and he took out the police pistol, the Southern M60, and held it in his hand to check the bullets. It was okay. Check the insurance, okay. Let me see, is it a person or a ghost? Shinohara Nobuji held a gun in one hand, inserted the key into the lock and turned it, click, then grabbed the handle to open it. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. At this moment, the sound of frantic scratching of wooden boards with nails echoed from behind the door in room 201. What's inside? Kamehara Yuji's heart was pounding wildly, his heart almost jumping out of his throat, but his body's reaction was faster than his mind, and he took several steps back. No, we can't move forward anymore. The strong instinct of his body suggested that Yuji Kanehara could not move forward any further, and opening the door was an indescribable terror to him. It's like standing barehanded in front of a cage containing a hungry beast, hearing its gurgling sound, and the door of the cage is still ajar. Should we just forget it? At this moment, the handle of room 201 began to turn from inside. Kamehara Yuji was almost suffocating, but he gritted his teeth and lifted the police gun in his hand. His index finger pulled the trigger and aimed it at the door. Regardless of what it was, ghosts, monsters, or demons, he would first take a few bullets from me before speaking. The door opened a crack from inside, as if some monster was about to emerge. Suddenly, a tall and robust figure flashed in front of Shinawara Yuji's eyes. A sturdy arm extended out, grabbed the handle, and pushed the door of room 201 back. The palms with thick joints tightly grasped the handle and remained motionless no matter how they rotated inside. After more than 10 seconds, the noise in room 201 finally calmed down. Amitabha Buddha, benefactor, you shouldn't be here. Behind this door is not a realm that ordinary people can step into. The tall figure turned around, revealing a monk with thick eyebrows, big eyes, and deep wrinkles on his eyebrows. He was dressed in white and wore a red robe revealing his right shoulder outside, looking upright and inviolable. Shinawara Yuji instinctively turned his gun towards the monk, but hesitated again. The monk remained expressionless in the face of the dark muzzle, only bowing his head and reciting the Buddhist name. Master, who are you? Kamehara Yuji only felt like he had walked through the gates of hell once, and in this situation, he found himself full of warmth towards the sudden appearance of the monk. It was too offensive to point his gun at him. You. Cough, the poor monk's dharma name is Di Lu. End of this chapter. Chapter 3, Chapter 003. Buddhism is Explosion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3, Chapter 003. Buddhism is Explosion. This monk was transformed by Uzi Boming through the transformation technique in the three-body technique. The prototype is a monk from the fire temple who received a boxed meal as soon as he appeared in the fire shadow. Anyway, there is no fire shadow comic in this world, so Uji Boming didn't hesitate to use the names and shapes of the characters. After making up his mind to solve the problem of evil spirits by himself before dark, Uji Boming simply slipped out of the hospital and wandered around the nearby streets, transforming into an inconspicuous middle-aged office worker in the stairwell of a crowded supermarket. Then he walked a distance and transformed into a monk named Di Lu in a small alley without surveillance cameras. He took a tram to the scene of the crime. Buddhism flourished in the island country, and even in an international metropolis like Tokyo, there are dozens of famous temples, and it is not surprising that a few monks appear on the streets. The closer he got to the scene of the crime, the more severe the piercing pain on Uji Boming's cheek became. Just as Uji Boming was about to go upstairs, he saw a police car coming over. A middle-aged police officer who looked somewhat depressed got out of the car, walked up the stairs, and quietly followed behind. Afterwards, he saw that after the opening of the door failed, the things inside the room were actually eager to open the door, but in a critical moment, he stopped them. Master Di Lu, haven't you seen the warning line outside? As a monk, why did you appear at the crime scene? Which temple are you from? Besides Takayama Temple, which other temples are there in Nakano Ward? While contemplating, Yuji Shinawara instinctively used the tone of interrogating the prisoners. It is precisely because the poor monk is a monk that he appears here. Uji Boming said meaningfully. Kamehara Yuji frowned and remembered the evil incident that had happened at the entrance of room 201 before, his face slightly delicate. The meaning behind this master's words is not something he doesn't understand. But what are there really unclean non-human things in this world? After all, Yuji Kamehara has not yet witnessed it firsthand, and what happened before can also be explained by someone hiding inside room 201 pretending to be a ghost. But recalling the terrifying horror of the past, he couldn't even convince himself of this reason now. Is the master here to help the deceased Xiaozong pass away? Shinawara Yuji asked tactfully. This transcendence has multiple layers of meaning. Even if someone passes away, ordinary people would seek monks to recite scriptures to transcend the dead. However, another layer of meaning hidden by Shinawara Yuji is to ask if Di Lu came to transcend the undead who caused trouble in the small warehouse. It has to be said that islanders are just pretentious. Yuji Boming nodded lightly. The saying goes, too much talk leads to loss, and he is forced to ward off evil spirits. He is completely ignorant of these things, and the more he says, the more likely he is to be exposed. Yuji Boming pressed his hand on the handle with a slight force, but the door that had previously opened as if it had malfunctioned now remains motionless. Why refuse people thousands of miles away, female benefactor? Then forgive me for offending you. Yuji Boming infused chakra into the soles of his feet, then flew up and kicked the door open. Shinawara Yuji widened his eyes behind him, and this Master Dilu was also too wild. As soon as the door opened, a hair-jerking aura came towards him, and this fluffy feeling made Shinawara Yuji feel as if he was in a morgue. At the entrance, there is a large pool of dried-up blood, which is probably the place where Miki Ogura was killed. Kamihara Yuji carefully looked inside the door and was mentally prepared. Even if he saw something at this moment, even the ghost of Miki Kakura, he would not be surprised. This is a single-person apartment with only 20 square meters. The entrance is adjacent to the bathroom, and you can walk 2 steps to the bedroom. The dim, yellow, and moldy ceiling makes a creaking sound when you step on the tatami, but the cheap rent can cover up all the shortcomings. The house was cluttered with beer cans, lunch boxes, and snack packaging paper, indicating that the owner was a rather messy person. Unexpectedly, there was nothing inside the house. Kamihara Yuji looked at Di Lu with some suspicion, but Di Lu still had a calm expression on his face. Amitabha Buddha. The next step is not something that ordinary people should touch. Benefactor, please stand here and I will go back. Master, why did you say this? It's already the 3rd decade of the 21st century, the 4th year of the Reiwa era. Even if there are really any demons and monsters in this world, they cannot go unpunished. If Master Di Lu can truly transcend the undead, it would be immeasurable merit and there is no need to conceal it. Besides, the two of them can support each other when they enter, which is safer. Shinjen Xiongji raised his police gun in his hand. Please wait a moment, benefactor. Yujibwa frowned and finally agreed. Yujibwa raised his sword and struck the door, causing wood shavings to fly. Without a few or 5 strikes, he dismantled the entire door and threw it outside. In horror movies, it is common for victims to enter the room and the door automatically closes and cannot be opened again, trapped inside. So, can opening the door avoid this problem? If anything unexpected happens later, even snatching the door and fleeing can save a procedure. I am really too steady. Please come in, benefactor. Yuji Boming led the way into room 201, and after a moment of hesitation, Yuji Kanahara finally followed in. The first step for Yuji Boming to enter the room is to turn on the lights. This single-person rental room was originally not large, and under the dim yellow lights, everything in the room was at a glance. The center, corners, and ceiling of the house were all normal. Kamihara Yuji checked the room a bit and found that there were no people hidden in it. Who was the person who twisted the handle inside the room before? And at this moment, the lights in the room flickered on and off, capturing once again the unprecedented sense of unease that had occurred before. The sense of crisis of facing the beast unarmed once again came to mind, but this time it became even stronger. A woman dressed in white clothes with a pale face suddenly stood in the corner of the room, her eyes gray and white, staring maliciously at the two of them. Miki Kakura. Looking at the face of the woman in white, Yuji Kamihara couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, just like the corpses and photos he had seen before. Kamihara Yuji aimed his gun and looked at Master Daiku with a pleading gaze. Master Daiku remained calm and recited the Buddhist name. Amitabha Buddha, you have suffered hardships during your lifetime and have no peace after death. The female benefactor is really suffering, but you no longer need to be afraid. I will transcend the female benefactor and go to the pure land of the West. From then on, all the pain and sorrow in the world will have nothing to do with you. Nanwo Amitba Duo Piyi, Duoda Jia Duo Yi. During the process of reciting the reincarnation scripture by Master Di Lu, the face of the evil spirit became increasingly ferocious. At this moment, the originally somewhat gorgeous face was like a wild beast, making one shudder at the sight. But the singing of the fan did not stop, like flowing clouds and flowing water. Influenced by the calm and composed Master Di Lu, Kazuji Kanhara couldn't help but calm down. Master Di Lu appears to be a virtuous monk. Perhaps reciting the rebirth mantra can dispel the resentment of Miyuki Kakura and help her become a Buddha honestly. He began to look forward and couldn't help but look at the evil spirits. In fact, Yuji Boming's heart was also a bit empty, but now there is no way out. He has gambled everything on the fire escape technique of LV2. He cursed and stared closely at the evil spirit, searching for an opportunity to take action. Gugna, Zijuojia, Shaba. Master Di Lu, is there also a shadow of the vengeful spirit? Shinawara Yuji came in a trembling voice. How do I know this? In my past and present lives, I have also encountered evil for the first time. How do I know if there are any shadows of ghosts in this world? Yuji Boming's gaze couldn't help but look at the soles of the evil spirit's feet. There was indeed a shadow, and the shadow suddenly twisted and stretched strangely, extending towards the two on the tatami mat. Seeing the situation was not good, Uchihiro made a nimble backward jump and flashed directly from the bedroom to the outside, but Nobuji Kamihara couldn't avoid it. The shadow of the evil spirit connected his shadow. The evil spirit's grayish-white pupils flickered with undisguised malice, and he pinched his neck with both hands. Kamihara Yuji also involuntarily lifted his hands and pinched his neck. So. This is how I committed suicide. Kamihara Yuji rolled his eyes and a strong sense of suffocation hit his mind. At this moment, he only heard a sound of glee. Female benefactor, it's time to go. Amitabha Buddha. Bang! A huge fireball with a diameter of over 1 meter flew from outside and hit the evil spirit with a loud bang. Sparks splattered everywhere, and the heat rolled, making Yuji Shinawara feel that his hair was burnt. But the next second, he realized he could move, and Shinawara Yuji crawled out of room 201. Upon seeing Master Di Lu, Yuji Kamihara quickly spoke up and said, Master Di Lu. Be careful of the shadow of the female ghost. If you are entangled by its shadow, you will be manipulated. I see. Then I saw Master Di Lu's face change, his hands imprint, he recites Amitabha Buddha, opens his mouth, and spits out a huge fireball, roaring into the room. The room seemed to have been thrown with another grenade, and the loud explosion and scorching heat struck once again. After being upgraded to LV2, Yuji Boming can now use some C.level fire escape ninjas such as Heihokyu, and his killing power has improved by leaps and bounds compared to before, which is also his confidence in daring to come and eliminate spirits. Master Di Lu, have you blown up the ghost of Xiaocang? Transcended it? Yuji Kamihara looked at Master Di Lu with a complex expression and asked with difficulty. Are you monks able to transcend the dead like this? Shouldn't we knock on the mouth of the wooden fish and recite the scriptures? The ghosts and monsters wash away their fierce energy and ascend to the Buddha in peace in the light of the Buddha, or take out the Buddha's staff and shout Amitabha Buddha, dance like tigers, and go down with a stick to beat the ghosts and monsters to the west. This art style is far from what I imagined. Master Lu of this place must have retired from a certain battlefield, right? Yuji Boming did not hear the kill prompt, indicating that the evil spirit had not been killed. But the piercing pain on the cheek has been much relieved, it seems that the evil spirit is not feeling well under the too powerful fireball spells, and may even be severely injured. Alas, the female benefactor's resentment is too deep, and her soul is still entangled in this apartment. This won't work. If it turns into a ghost house, it will be troublesome. This room must be thoroughly purified, said Master Di Lu with compassion. End of this chapter. Chapter 4004. Extraordinary and mighty, terrifying like this. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4004. Extraordinary and mighty, terrifying like this. Master, do you mean to burn down this room? Will it be too? Kamehara Yuji naturally understood the implied meaning of the Land Master, but setting fire to the island was a serious crime. He set fire to the house and sat down in prison. As a police officer, he instinctively wanted to oppose it. Benefactor, there is no need to worry about the poor monk. Being able to transcend a dead spirit and let her escape from the sea of suffering and come to my Buddha's side is also a merit for the poor monk. Even if I am tired and suffer a little bit, I will still enjoy it. Kamehara Yuji couldn't help but laugh and cry, Master Dilu, that's not what I meant. Even if you want to purify this house because of the spirits of Chowdu Xiaocang, you must first obtain the landlord's consent, right? Why don't you go back to the office with me first, cooperate with the investigation, and invite the landlord over to discuss? How about that? I have no intention of dealing with the government. I only saw Master Di Lu give a faint glance and say. Urgent matters require power, and the deceased of the female benefactor must be dealt with as soon as possible. It is also necessary to purify this house. I have also accumulated some merit for the landlord during this trip. It is estimated that the landlord will also understand the righteousness and willingly agree, and will not blame me for the mere possession outside of me. Although there was an idea of seeking help from official forces before, seeing that Huadun is effective against evil spirits, there is no need to deal with them. I have made up my mind, benefactor. It's better to evacuate the other residents of this apartment to avoid any harm to the fish in the pond. Seeing the resolute attitude of Master Di Lu, who could not be opposed, Yuji Kamehara couldn't help but hesitate. Although Master Di Lu is somewhat different from the imagined High Monk Dida, a large flame spewed out from his mouth under his nose, with a power no less than that of a grenade. He is not a small trick performed by a circus fire-breathing performance, but a truly extraordinary person. The first confirmation of the existence of ghosts and the first witnessing of supernatural beings using spells shook the worldview of Nobuji Shinawara, causing him to feel somewhat disoriented for a while. In this regard, Master Lu is the professional, perhaps we should listen to him. And if Master Di Lu really wants to do this, I can't oppose it either. I just want to resist Master Di Lu's gun turret by intentionally weakening the extremely weak Southern M60 with my own penetrating power. Let's just forget it. In the end, Yuji Kamehara had no choice but to give up and run downstairs to evacuate the residents. Yuji Boming looked at room 201. Since he knew that evil spirits could control shadows and manipulate other people's bodies, running into the dark and cramped room to fight against them was the last resort. Since the evil spirit has been hovering near the deceased apartment, it may have transformed into a ground-bound spirit or something like that. Burning down the house may be able to eliminate it. It is his first time exorcising evil spirits, and he is not very sure about this, but at least it is a possibility. He can only treat the dead horse as a living horse doctor and try burning down 201 first. Yuji Boming retreated to the door and began to imprint his hands. Si Wei Shanhai Wu Yin, just like before, bears the seal of the technique of the giant fireball. The previous two powerful fireball moves were only hastily triggered with the minimum amount of chakra, but this time Uchiha's actions are quite effortless. Try to transport the chakra into the mouth as much as possible, and after accumulating the maximum amount, Yuji Boming opened his mouth and spat out. Amitabha Buddha. The art of fireball. With a loud bang, the wall facing the entrance of room 201 was blasted away, and flames rose up, scattered throughout the corners of the room. The flames licked the ceiling upwards, engulfing half of the room, and thick smoke billowed into the sky. Just like being hit directly by a rocket launcher, the power of this Haobo technique is several times greater than the first few times. Yuji Boming was once again at the entrance of room 201, spewing out clusters of sparks from his mouth, igniting the unburned area. Soon, room 201 was like a sea of fire. At this moment, Yuji Boming finally saw what he wanted to see. Amidst the rolling flames, the evil spirit finally emerged, but this time its image was very disheveled. Compared to the previous almost tangible spiritual body, the current spiritual body has become transparent and illusory, but its eyes are still the same as the first time, cold and sinister. Even if it is forced to the brink, there is no change in sight. Yuji Boming was vigilant as he watched the shadow of the evil spirit, wary of it using its previous eerie abilities. However, the evil spirit was so weak that it no longer had the ability to use magic, and flew straight out of the fire towards Yuji Boming. Amitabha Buddha. A huge fireball finally devoured those resentful eyes. Killing completed, checking rewards, Renyu *10, Shadow Imitation LV1. Upon hearing the kill prompt, the piercing pain on his face completely disappeared, and Yuji Boming finally felt relieved. The flames surged into the sky, and the flames grew bigger and bigger. Room 201 had already burned through the ceiling and spread to other places, with thick smoke billowing into the sky. At this moment, Kamihara no Ji returned and went. I saw Master D. Lu standing in the middle of the fire, ignoring the rolling heat waves with a thoughtful expression. Cough cough, Master D. Lu, I have taken all the residents out and then saw that the apartment was on fire. The fire was getting bigger and bigger, and I noticed that you hadn't come out yet. So I rushed up to check the situation. Cough cough. Seeing Shinawara Yuji coughing and stuttering from the smoke, D. Lu shook his head. Benefactor, rushing up like this is too reckless. Unlike a poor monk, how can ordinary people withstand the merciless flames? Looking down from the damaged wall, the fire has caught the attention of nearby streets. Some people are running around with call signs, while others are making phone calls to the fire station. In the history of the island nation, due to its dense population and mostly wooden structures, there have been multiple devastating fires, with thousands of people dying from a city burning to the ground, all of which are true occurrences. The most famous fire in ancient times was probably the Ming Dynasty Great Fire in the 17th century, which burned half of Edo into ashes in 2 days and 2 nights. A little closer is Li Mei, who has countless acquaintances in Tokyo. Therefore, the people of island countries attach equal importance to the fire situation as much as the earthquake situation. The ghost of the female benefactor has been purified by the poor monk with flames and has become a Buddha. It is meaningless to continue burning it like this. If it really harms the innocent, it will be my fault. Before leaving, let the poor monk take the flames with him. D. Lu raised his right palm in front of him to perform a Buddhist salute, and raised his left hand high with one finger facing the sky. All the flames on the floor, walls, and ceiling seemed to be pulled by some force, receding and sweeping onto the ground like a receding tide, swirling and enveloping it. Upon seeing the flames rising like lotus flowers or Buddha's light, Shinjiro Kanehara saw the towering body of Master Earthland completely enveloped by the sacred flames, as if draped in a blazing flame robe, with a solemn yet compassionate expression, appearing as sacred as Buddha. Amitabha Buddha. After a Buddhist chant, the flames suddenly spread and extinguished, disappearing along with the Earthland Master inside. The flames that had swept through half of the apartment building before were almost completely gone, and in an instant, they were completely gone. Kaoru Shinawara felt dazed, as if in a dream. Extraordinary power, terrifying like this. Signed. End of this chapter. Chapter 5005. Yuzhibo Immortal Gate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5005. Uzibo Immortal Gate Nakano Ward is a relatively small area sandwiched between Shinjuku Ward and Shinjuku Ward. To the south is Shibuya Ward, separated from Shinjuku by only 3 subway stations. Nakano Ward has convenient transportation and has attracted a considerable number of young people to rent here. Near Nakano Station is a large group of office buildings, and during the rush hour of 5 or 6 o'clock, Uchiha struggles to squeeze the tram home. Uchiha's home is a one-household building located in Yayomachi 2-chome in the southern part of Nakano Ward. A single-family building may look like a villa, but in reality, it may not be as comfortable to live in as a high-end apartment. Firstly, the stairs and corridors consume a lot of actual usage area, and daily cleaning up and down is also very difficult. If it is a single-family building with a yard, preventing typhoons, insects, and weeds is a headache. Yuji Boming hesitated at the door for a while, feeling a bit complicated as he awakened his past life memories. However, Yuji Boming comes from a single-parent family. His mother passed away before he started elementary school, while his father was busy with official business and often went on business trips, with fewer gatherings and more departures. As their relationship became more distant, it should not be seen. He received the news that Yuji Boming had a car accident and rushed to the hospital overnight to meet him. He heard from the doctor that there was no major problem and returned to work the next day. After changing his shoes, Yuji Boming walked directly into the living room. Yuji Boming's father, Yuji Boxianman, was sitting on the sofa. When he saw Yuji Boming, he waved to him. "Ah Ming, you're back. Come and sit here for a while." Although Uchiha in this world and Uchiha in the ninja realm are not of the same race, one common trait is that they are rich and handsome guys. Uzibo Immortal Gate is also a famous beautiful man in the community, with black hair like ink, sword eyebrows and starry eyes. At 36 years old, he doesn't look like a middle-aged man at all. Although working in the police station, wearing a pair of glasses exudes a scholarly aura. Due to lack of care, the slightly long black hair is simply tied up and hung on the chest, giving the whole person a gentle and polite appearance. Uchiha Sagami is still a top student at Tokugawa University, and was the first in his hometown village in Shizuoka Prefecture to be admitted to Tokugawa University. Having excellent appearance and education, he was successfully admitted to the police station after graduation and settled in Tokyo from the countryside. The only downside to his life experience was his wife's early death. Although he is a widower, his conditions are very good. He has been constantly introducing people to him, but they have all been rejected by him. His wife has passed away for nearly 10 years and is still single. However, the work at the Uzibo Immortal Sect is very busy, and traveling for 10.5 days and a month is a common occurrence. It's rare to see a dragon at the beginning but not the end, and it's rare to be able to go home today. I received a phone call from the hospital, saying that you have already left. Didn't the doctor say it's best to stay for an additional 2 days for observation? Uzibo Xianmen asked with concern. There was nothing wrong with my health, so I was discharged from the hospital. Yuji Boming was clear about the principle that saying too much leads to losing, and did not say much. The Immortal Gate of Yuji Bo asked Yuji Boming. Now that I see you're okay, I feel relieved. But you just returned from the hospital, should I ask the teacher for a 2-day leave before going to school? No need, taking a leave at the beginning of the school year can easily leave a bad impression on my classmates and teachers. I will go to class tomorrow. Yujibo nodded and didn't say anything more. Just then his phone suddenly rang. Picking up his phone and listening to a few words, the expression on Uchiha Immortal Sect's face, which was originally a bit scattered, suddenly became serious. What? Fire, okay, I'll go over now. Something happened, I have to rush to the police station. I have already ordered sushi. You can eat it yourself later, don't wait for me. Yujibo stood up, picked up his clothes, and hurriedly walked towards the door. Do you not even know that your own son doesn't like to eat sushi? After a meal of unappetizing grass, Yuji Boming returned to his room. Unlike the rooms of ordinary male high school students, Yuji Boming's room is very clean, the floor is spotless, and the neatly stacked bedding on the bed emits the fragrance of laundry detergent. On the desk across from the bed, there are various teaching aids piled up to the height of a human head. Yujibwa closed the door and sat at his desk, recalling what had happened today, then opened the system. ID, Yuji Boming, Level. Lower Ninja, Skills. Right Will I LV1, 0/10, Fire Escape LV2, 0/100, 3 Body Art LV1, 0/10, Writing Will I, Fire Escape, and 3 Body Technique are the basic templates for the characters of the Uchiha clan in the game. When Uchiha Ming played the game, he collected not only Uchiha characters, but also ninjas from other clans. After crossing over, he only inherited the basic skills of the Uchiha clan, which made him suspect that the butterfly effect was caused by the fact that his surname happened to be Uchiha after crossing over. In the system backpack, there is also a Ninyu *10, Shadow Imitation LV1 in the game. Killing monsters can indeed drop Ninja Jade, so when killing tentacle monsters and evil spirits and dropping Ninja Jade, Yuji Boming was not surprised, but dropping ninjutsu surprised him a bit. That game didn't have such a setting. How could evil spirits drop such things? Although the ability of evil spirits to manipulate other people's bodies through shadows is very similar to shadow imitation, it is not ninjutsu. I can only think of this as a mutation that occurred during my travels. Let's forget about it for now. Upgrading monsters is certainly a royal storyline, but I don't really want to deal with these monsters and monsters. I have lived in Tokyo for 15 years in my life, and I haven't heard of any news about monsters eating people. It's not easy to find their traces. Besides, who knows how deep the water is in this world, and if I encounter a big monster that capsizes, it's all over. Although dealing with tentacle monsters and evil spirits can be considered safe and easy, we cannot expect that all monsters and monsters are at this level. Big dogs, earth spiders, wine-swallowing boys, 8-legged snakes, and various legendary monsters from island countries with notorious names for calling out wind and rain quickly pass through Uzi Boming's mind, and his heart becomes increasingly fearful. Since there are evil spirits and monsters, there must also be extraordinary beings such as yin and yang masters, gods, and monks. However, I don't know how strong they are and how they will view themselves as the only ninja. More importantly, it is unknown how much the official knows about these demons and monsters. Although in many popular light novel comics nowadays, the official only serves as a background board, allowing the protagonist and villains such as monsters, demon kings, and aliens to fight fiercely in the city without being touched, and even unaware of what has happened. Yuji Boming cannot rely on hope, as the official reality is also a background board. For supernatural beings, the authorities cannot be ignorant or uninterested. The official can suppress those legendary demons and monsters, prevent them from causing trouble in the city, and even have no sound of the wind. Their strength is definitely even more terrifying. Although I don't think that after exposure, I will definitely be pulled to Slice for research, it is also essential to be controlled and reviewed by the official authorities. Yuji Boming is naturally grateful. The most terrifying thing is being pulled as cannon fodder to fight monsters. Before understanding the extraordinary world pattern and the official attitude towards the extraordinary, one must never expose oneself. The monk Di Lu, who was transformed through transformation techniques before, is just a vest, and there is no such manga as Hokage in this world. It only has a name, and even if the police officer wants to search, he has no way to start. When the sky falls, there are tall people standing against it. Since human society can develop to this extent, the threat of monsters should not be so great. It's not my turn to endure and save the world. It's better to be more stable. Set a small goal for yourself, and open up the 3 Goyu. No, open up the kaleidoscope before going out to defeat demons and dominate Tokyo. Yuji Boming does not believe that his Dangoyu Sharingan and LV2's fire escape can withstand the army. But opening a kaleidoscope is different. With a kaleidoscope, even in the face of legendary monsters and modern state machines, there is at least enough room for self-protection. Before that, low-key development, gathering intelligence, and practicing skills in the training field. There are several function icons below the system main page, and the first one is the cultivation field. Except for the cultivation field, all icons are black and locked, and clicking with your mind does not respond. Perhaps it was an accident that occurred while traveling through time, and when the game was converted into a system, many of its original functions were lost. There are 10 more Ninja Jade, add them to the writing will I first. When Yuji Boming opened his eyes again, 2 hooked jade appeared in his eyes. Write will I LV2, 0/100, end of this chapter. Chapter 6. 006 Training Field. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 006 Training Field. On the cliff, 4 huge and stern faces silently gazed ahead, as if guarding something. This is the landmark building of my village, Huiying Rock. From a bird's eye view from the air, the entire my village radiates outward from the center of Huiying Rock, with scattered and orderly buildings, bustling streets and alleys, bustling crowds, and a peaceful scenery. On the rooftop of the Huiying office building in front of Huiying Rock, Yuji Boming faced off with 2 blurry faces and wooden leaf ninjas wearing green vests with a cautious expression. Suddenly, a Konoha ninja raised his hand and threw a sword at Uchiha Tomo. At the same time, he, along with another Konoha ninja holding Kyumo, rushed towards Uchiha Tomo with horns on both sides. Xuan Goyu's riding wheel and eyes turned, and Yuji Boming could clearly see the flying trajectory of the sword in his hand. He calmly turned his head slightly, and the sword in his hand passed by his cheek by a hair's breadth. He quickly gestured with both hands, and with a thud, the 2 of them separated and rushed forward without hesitation to confront each other. 2 Konoha ninjas faced these 2 clones, their movements slightly stiff, before launching an attack. And taking advantage of this gap, Yuji Boming's hands flipped and printed in the order of Zin Su Cho Mao In. Then he opened his mouth and spewed out flames, flying like fairy flowers all over the sky. C.Level Fire Escape, the art of Phoenix Flower. Directly lit the 2 Konoha ninjas into fire figures. The Konoha ninjas did not howl, but instead turned into scattered dots of light. It's very easy to deal with 2 whiteboard ninjas who don't even have ninjutsu, using LV2's fire escape. Yuji Boming stood on top of the Huiying building, gazing down at the entire Kiba village like Huiying, with a joyful and relaxed expression on his face. He thought for a moment, and in the next moment, the background of the fire shadow rock in my village disappeared instantly. Then he appeared in the sand-hidden village surrounded by the desert, with yellow sand everywhere and buildings rolling like balls and columns. The architecture of Shayin village is obviously based on the residential buildings of the generation in the North African desert in reality. The thick walls can effectively cope with the huge temperature difference between day and night in the desert, and the round building shape and narrow windows are designed to avoid erosion by wind and sand. Yuji Boming enjoyed the exotic scenery with great interest, and soon the scene changed. He appeared again under the blue sky, in the thunder-hidden village on the high mountain. There is also the rain-hidden village, which is shrouded in rain and fog all year round, with towering buildings competing in scale. The background where Yuji Boming was located was constantly changing like a slide, and finally stopped before returning to the Huiying building in my village. The cultivation field function currently used by Yuzibo is like meditation. Consciousness can enter the cultivation field for various trainings, and time is synchronized with reality. The experience and proficiency accumulated after exiting the cultivation field are preserved. The cultivation field can provide various venues for practice, all of which are famous scenes in the Fire Shadow. NPCs can also be generated to simulate human-machine battles. NPCs that simulate battles may not have high intelligence, but they are still qualified as training targets and can accumulate practical experience. The cultivation field can be considered a great help to Yuji Boming. After all, the momentum of fire escape is quite terrifying, water and fire are ruthless, and a slight mistake may lead to a fire. Yuji Boming does not want to light up his own house. The most important thing is to keep it completely confidential. When practicing ninjutsu in the training ground, you don't have to worry about accidentally leaking secrets. Exiting the cultivation field, please select the skill to practice while hanging up. 3 Body Technique LV1, 0/10, in idle mode, obtain 1 proficiency point after 24 hours of idle mode. After training all night, my mental strength has almost exhausted, and the fatigue accumulated after leaving the cultivation field has returned to my body. Yuji Boming stretched lazily and looked at the clock. It was already 3 o'clock. The time on the training ground is synchronized with reality. After all, Uchiha is only a freshman in high school and has to attend classes and sleep. It is impossible for him to stay in the training ground 24 hours a day practicing ninjutsu. Although the efficiency of obtaining proficiency through hanging up is not as good as personal training, it can make use of the time spent sleeping and attending classes. Obtaining 1 proficiency point within 24 hours doesn't seem like much. It takes 10 days to upgrade an LV1 skill to LV2, but with a steady stream, you can accumulate at least 300 points per year. After 1 year, you can upgrade your skills to LV3, including Sharingan, Fire Dunk, and 3 Body Technique. With just a little more effort, it's not impossible to open a kaleidoscope before graduating from high school. This is the small goal of Yuji Boming now. I quickly took a nap, and when the alarm clock rang, it was already 6:30. I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror, with some dark circles under my eyes. Yuji Boming took a shower with cold water, brushed his teeth and washed up, ate some bread, and took the Yamanote Line JR to school. Private Shengangsi High School in Wenjing District, Class B for 1 year. I am Yuji Boming. It's nice to meet everyone. I hope you can give me more guidance in the future. Write your name on the blackboard, and Yuji Boming turned around and introduced himself in a dignified manner. He was wearing the spring uniform of a private temple high school, with a deep black Western-style jacket, a snow-white short shirt, and a beige wool vest. The straight and slender black pants made his master's figure even more upright. Yuji Boming has a slender figure, and more importantly, he is good-looking and handsome in everything he wears. His handsome face has already made the female classmates below look at him with little stars in their eyes. The new classmate is actually a handsome guy at the school idol level. One person brings the average appearance of the boys in the class to the top of the entire grade. The mentor of Class B for a year, Ichiro Kaneshiro, is a middle-aged man who has already begun to decline. Yuchibo missed the school opening ceremony yesterday due to some accidents. Today is his first time coming to school, so you need to take care of him more. Do you have any more questions to ask? Me. Several girls have already eagerly raised their hands. So, does Yuzibo have any interest? Interest is reading, Yujibo replied. Yuzibo ranked 15th in the entrance exam and also 2nd in our Class B, Jin Cheng-isan added. The private Shengangsi High School has admitted over 300 new students this year, divided into 8 classes, with an average of less than 40 students per class. Wow, you're still a top student. The girls look even more enthusiastic. The boy wearing thick glasses couldn't help but curl his lips from the left in the first row. My class monitor is still the 4th in the entrance exam and the 1st in the class. How did you girls describe me as a bookworm? It's not just about looking at your face. Yuzibo, do you have a girlfriend? This time, the question was asked by a girl who had her hair tips dyed light gold, with a face that was on the center, but her makeup was very delicate. He is handsome and good at studying. I thought there were only a few sour melons and cracked dates in this class, but I didn't expect such a big surprise. Although I have to be divided into different classes in my sophomore year, with a whole year of time spent together, I might be able to get close to each other first. I don't think high school is a suitable time for dating. As students, we still have more important things to do. Teacher, is my seat the empty table in the back by the window? After receiving a positive response, Yuji Boming didn't give anyone else a chance to ask any more questions. He picked up his backpack and sat down in his seat. Yuzibo, this surname is not very common, it's really interesting, isn't it? The boy in the front row turned around and rested half of his body on Yuji Boming's desk. In the front row of Yuji Boming was a boy who looked slippery, with a bit of sharp-tongued monkey cheeks, mischievous eyebrows, and mischievous hair with hair wax. He didn't wear a men's suit or uniform like other boys, but instead wore a valuable light purple jacket. The culture of surname and surname in ancient Japan is very different from that of the mainland. Surnames are honorary titles bestowed by the emperor on ministers, similar to titles and official positions. Therefore, it is impossible for ordinary people to have surnames. Surnames are clan names maintained by blood relationships, and are not limited to wealthy aristocrats. Ordinary people can also have surnames. However, with the development of the times, surnames became too prevalent. In order to distinguish them, the Miao character emerged. The Miao character is a new surname that separated from the original family, equivalent to a separate family name, emphasizing more on bloodline inheritance. For example, Oda and Tokugawa are actually Miao characters. Later, with the promulgation of the civilian Miao character license order, after the Meiji Restoration, the integration of surnames, and Miao characters gave rise to the current meaning of surnames. According to the memory of this lifetime, Uchiha's ancestors were craftsmen who made a living by making fans. They originally did not have a surname, let alone the Miao character. After the Meiji Restoration, they created the surname Uchiha with the word fan, based on their own culinary skills. You are. Meet me, my name is Tanaka Guang. I really envy people with rare surnames like you. Unlike me, I often hear someone shout, Tanaka, while walking on the street, and when I look back, I'm calling someone else. Tanaka Guang raised one hand to support his head, frowned and said. If you shout Sato, half of the people on the street will turn around and shout Suzuki again, and the remaining half will also turn around. Yuji Boming joked. Sato and Suzuki are the first and second largest surnames in the island country. Both of them laughed at the same time. Before, I saw that your questions about girls were not fake, and I thought it was difficult to talk. You seem to be a reasonable person, so it seems we can make friends. Yuzibo smiled and nodded, he was a naturally familiar person. Tanaka Guang is a very talkative person. Although he is also a newly enrolled student, he is quite familiar with Shengongsi High School. He can easily pick up various rumors, and Yukibo Ming is very interested in listening to them. The person who asked you if you have a girlfriend before was Lihuo Lizi, who looks a bit like a spicy girl. However, Yuzibo, what you said just now, do you really not want to have a girlfriend in high school? High school romance feels a bit early. What era of antique thinking are you? It's already the time of Lingi, and it's common for middle school students to fall in love. Tanaka Guang shook his head disapprovingly and said with a hint of resentment, what a waste. It's not just a waste of youth, but also a waste of your face. If I were to grow up like you, I would have made plans to marry several girls in elementary school when I grew up. Yuji Boming is a bit funny. After implementing relaxed education in the island country, there are 2 classes in the afternoon, and school usually ends at 3 or 4 o'clock. In his opinion, high school students in the island country always think about dating and celebrating their youth, but it is indeed because there is too little homework. A serious student, who is in a romantic relationship. He is wise enough to do such a foolish thing. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. 007 Dark Tide Surge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7007 Dark Tide Surge. Yuzibo, come up and do this question. In the fourth math class in the morning, a math teacher in her 20s and 60s with shoulder-length short hair and a hint of coldness next to the blackboard named Yuji. Yuji stood on his seat and scrutinized the math problems on the blackboard. A3K, A3K plus 1, A3K plus 2, every three elements in a sequence form a set that satisfies the above relationship. Every three numbers can accumulate a remainder of 1. A3 to A2022 happen to be 677 sets, so the problem-solving thinking for this question should be like this. After pondering for over a minute, Yuji walked up to the blackboard and wrote down the process and answer on it. That's right, Yuzibo, but don't doze off in my class next time. There are still some omissions in your problem-solving process, so here. The math teacher picked up chalk and wrote on the blackboard. Because he trained too late yesterday, Yuji couldn't hold on anymore. He squinted a little and was discovered by the math teacher with keen eyes. Not long after, the bell rang for the end of class. Mathematics class was the last class in the morning, and the students were already hungry. The math teacher did not intend to delay the class and immediately announced the end of class. Yuji didn't even cook breakfast by himself, so naturally he didn't even have to go to the cafeteria with Tanaka Guang. Yuji ordered a portion of beef, felt his hungry stomach, and ordered a large portion of ramen noodles with dolphin bone. The fixed beef food is fried beef and onions, plus a poached egg, a bowl of miso soup and a bowl of rice. 2 large pieces of pork are placed on the large portion of pork bone ramen noodles. The piles are full of garlic, scallions and bean sprouts, emitting the aroma of animal fat. This meal cost Yuji 1,200 yen, and it would be even more expensive to eat outside the school. Tanaka Guang brought the fried tempura set meal to the opposite side of Uchiha no Miki, and was surprised to see how many Uchiha no Miki ordered. Yuzibo, so you're a meat eater, so you can eat it. Yuji also ate a lot more when he practiced chakra and ninjutsu. He first took ramen noodles and wiped out the pork, then sucked ramen noodles into his stomach. After eating the noodles, he patted his stomach. Yuji said. Maybe I went to high school and developed faster. Recently, my appetite has increased a lot, and I used to eat half of it before. Development. Hehe, did you doze off during teacher Inoue's class last night? The small expression on Tanaka's face was absolutely stunning. Don't think people are so mean, I just played games a little late and didn't get enough sleep. Yuji looked dismissive, continued to eat a large mouthful of braised rice, accompanied by the bone soup left by ramen noodles with porridge bone, to eat another beef meal. Today's math class is almost embarrassing, and I can't train so late anymore, which affects my daily routine. I can't leave my studies behind, so I'll spend less time on cultivation. Yuji swallowed a piece of fragrant and oily beef, licked his oily lips, thinking to himself. Although he has opened his writing wheel, Yuji does not intend to give up his studies. His deviation value is very good. From the admission test results, although he is still far from top-tier universities like Dongda, he is still very confident about the top 10 universities. Yuji is not a very intelligent person, and he has put in considerable effort to achieve such results. The island country is also a highly competitive exam country in terms of academic performance. In private high schools like Kamiya Temple High School, academic pressure is also high. If one's grades suddenly drop after entering high school, they will definitely be contacted by their parents. Learning is like sailing against the current. If you don't advance, you will fall behind. To maintain your grades, you must spend time studying. However, in this way, the time for opening the 3 Goyu may be delayed. Yuji took his last sip of pork bone soup and was still somewhat unsatisfied. He swept away both sets of meals, except for a bowl of miso soup. He is not used to drinking this kind of thing and cannot understand the preference of the island people for MSG. Unfortunately, the ordering in the cafeteria is only served with MSG soup, with the only difference being that Restaurant A offers tofu MSG soup and Restaurant B offers seaweed MSG soup. Meanwhile, Tanaka Guan, who was browsing his phone while eating, seemed to have seen some interesting news and couldn't help but read it out. A gas pipeline explosion occurred in an old apartment in Shimazuno, triggering a severe fire. This on-site video is a bit interesting. Tokyo is so big, with a resident population of over 10 million, it's not surprising that gas explosions or fires occur, said Uchiha Hiroshi calmly. A typical fire is not really news, but take a look at this video. Tanaka handed over his phone, and the pixel count of the video was not very high. It should have been captured by a nearby surveillance camera. I saw a violent explosion in the first room on the second floor of a dilapidated cheap apartment building. Even the walls were blasted open with a big hole, and a blazing fire surged out of the gap, quickly devouring half of the building, with flames soaring into the sky. If the video ends here, it's just a regular fire video, but strangely enough, after the fire, it curls up and shrinks back into the house like a special effects lens, and the fire disappears from here. Why did the fire shrink back on its own? It doesn't seem like it was played backwards in this video, it should be from Photoshop. The current Photoshop technology is really exquisite, Tanaka exclaimed. During the conversation, the progress bar had already finished and Tanaka was about to play it again when the video showed that it had been deleted. Hey, why is the video gone? At the same time, in room 201 of the cheap apartment where Mikio Kakura was murdered, a handsome black suit man wearing glasses asked the technician beside him. Have all the online videos been cleaned up? The technician scratched the tablet in his hand and replied, yes, Yuzibo Police, the technical department has blocked it according to the website source file link. It has been announced to the public that the explosion was caused by the aging of the gas pipeline, and we are already very familiar with this set. If Yuji Ming were here, he would find that this beautiful man in a black suit is from the Yuji Immortal sect. A group of well-dressed police officers behind them, who looked very efficient, were sweeping around room 201 with various complex and precise instruments in their hands. Suddenly, a police officer, holding an instrument resembling a metal detector, made a dripping sound. Uchiha Shimon's expression changed slightly and he said, we can detect a special reaction. The report sent by Officer Shingen from Nakano Police Station doesn't seem to be entirely false. Yuzibo Police Station, the autopsy report of the perpetrator involved in the previous case has also been released. Would you like to take a look? Yuzibo Xianmen quickly took the tablet from the technician's hand. The cause of death is a typical mechanical suffocation, and no other possible causes of death were found during autopsy. The strangulation marks on the deceased's neck and hands were found to be completely consistent through comparison, and only the DNA of the perpetrator was found in the dandruff extracted from the nails of the deceased's hands. It can be basically concluded that the perpetrator's suicide did not involve a second person. The killer did indeed strangle himself, not commit suicide. Is it really another supernatural death accident? It's only April now, and this year's death toll has exceeded previous years. Yuzibo Immortal sect took out several documents from the briefcase they carried with them. It is the police report handed over by Yuji Shinawara, along with a series of inquiry records afterwards, and even a mental assessment certificate for Yuji Shinawara. Yuzibo Immortal sect frowned and repeatedly looked at the report word for word, with a more serious expression. The evil spirits that manipulate shadows, as well as the monks who use spells to spew fire, took away all the flames in the fire field and disappeared in the wind. It looks like a dreamy person. The existence of evil spirits is not doubted by the Yuzibo Immortal sect. Whether it is his personal experience or official records, there are even more bizarre things than this. But for the mysterious monk named D. Lu, who can spew flames mentioned in the second half of the report, it is a bit unbelievable. If this is true, even if the existence of certain non-human objects was basically confirmed 15 years ago, it would still be a major event that could shake the upper echelons of the island nation. This may be the first confirmed existence of a human superhero. Since the first observation of supernatural events 19 years after Heisei in 2007, various bizarre and mysterious supernatural events have occurred one after another, and the Metropolitan Police Department has even captured special individuals suspected of being monsters. Starting from the following year, the police station has been secretly conducting a rigorous investigation of temples and shrines across the country, hoping to find supernatural beings such as the legendary mages and yin and yang masters who possess magical power to subdue demons and eliminate demons. But in the end, nothing was achieved. Later, the scope expanded to the common people, and many well-known psychics and superpowers were found. Unexpectedly, it was discovered that all of them were river and lake fraudsters. But this time it seems different. Yuzibo Immortal Gate said to the technicians, "Retrieve the surveillance video." Staring at the tall monk with a slightly blurry face in the video, Yuzibo Immortal Sect gave instructions. Notify the technical department to clarify the monk's face, compare it with the database for facial recognition, and see if his true identity can be found. Also, call all nearby surveillance cameras to track him up from his appearance in the apartment until the earliest location where he appeared is traced. Notify the Intelligence Analysis Department to check the list of registered monks in all temples in Tokyo. Even if the monk with the Dharma name, D. Lu, cannot be found, they should try to analyze which sect and temple they belong to based on the clothes they wear. And this Shenyuan police officer, has the person been controlled? Send him to the police station in Chiyoda, and I need to talk to him personally. Summarize all the information to me before 8 p.m. tonight, and I will report to them. One instruction after another was issued in an orderly manner. The Yuzibo Immortal Sect is very clear about their investigation report and what kind of shock it will cause when submitted. After monsters and evil spirits, has it finally been the turn of human beings to appear? When I was young, I didn't have these ghosts. What will this country become? Uchiha Immortal Sect rubbed its eyebrows and muttered softly to itself. End of this chapter. Chapter 8008. Today's meals at the Uchiha family. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 8008. Today's meals at the Uchiha family. After finishing lunch, Yuji Boming took a nap under the shade of the trees in the campus courtyard and arrived at the cooking classroom during afternoon class time. The first class in the afternoon is a bi-weekly home economics class. The home economics class was a group of 2 people. Unexpectedly, Yuji Boming and Tanaka Guang were assigned to the same group. The elderly and smiling home economics teacher distributed a large basket of white radishes, and Yuji Boming was assigned to 4 of them. In today's cooking class, don't learn too profound things. Let's briefly talk about the basics of knife skills and peeling. The home economics teacher picked up a white radish, held a knife in one hand, and rotated the radish with the other hand. In this way, the radish skin was peeled off in circles, until the entire radish was peeled, and the skin was still intact as a long strip without breaking in the middle. This is what is called cinnamon peel. Gue peel is not a very advanced knife skill, and it is only an entry-level skill in the culinary world. It only requires a lot of repetitive practice to master. But it is still too difficult for Tokyo high school students who are not diligent in their limbs and have no distinction between food and vegetables. Some people peel a little radish and it breaks, while others are even more unlucky and almost cut their hands. Done. Tanaka Guang placed a small, unevenly sliced carrot core on the chopping board, and Uchiha Ming glanced at the trash can, where most of the carrot, including the belt meat, was chopped off. Half a class has passed, and only one obedient female student in Class B has completed the gue peel and received praise from the teacher. Tanaka took out a small notebook from the inside of his jacket, flipped through a page, and took out a pen to write on it. Takasaki Yu is good at swordsmanship, and should cook frequently at home. Her cooking skills may be good. Yujiba's eyes twitched slightly as he couldn't help but ask in a low voice. What are you doing writing this for? I am collecting information about all the girls in the school. I plan to divide them into 3 levels based on A, B, and C. Tanaka Guang said with a wry expression, although Takasaki Yu has a poor physique, her face is still quite cute. If she is good at cooking and delicious food, it will also be a big bonus, maybe she can be included in the A. level. Yuji Boming looked at Tanaka Guang speechlessly, saying that one cannot judge by appearance. Who knew you were still as frivolous and lewd as you appeared on the surface? If a girl heard your words, it could lead to your social death in high school and complete loss of mating rights. He began to seriously consider whether to distance himself from Tanaka Guang. He could still be considered a beautiful young man in his prime, and if he were misunderstood as a coquettish pervert who gathers like birds, he would be unjustly accused. The few radishes that were handed over were quickly wasted by the students, but the teacher didn't take it seriously and sent another basket of radishes down. Fortunately, radish is one of the cheapest vegetables in Japan, which can withstand such waste. Carrots, also known as big roots, have been a blessing to the poor since ancient times. In ancient times, the poor people paid rent and the imperial grain of the shogunate, but there was not much food left. Carrots were also one of the few vegetables that could be stored for autumn and winter, and many poor people used them as their staple food. In modern times with relatively abundant resources, radish is also the cheapest and most popular vegetable in Japan. The Japanese people even develop various methods based on the different moisture and spiciness of each part of the radish. For example, if the root of the radish has a lot of fiber and a bad taste, then it is fried, the middle is not spicy or sweet, and the taste is moderate. It is best to stew and cook. Carrots have a lot of moisture and sweetness in their head, making them a delicious dish for cold dishes or salads. Some people even eat radish leaves together, thinking that eating roots and leaves together can fully absorb the nutrients of radishes, which is called a whole thing. Yuji Boming held a knife and hesitated to take action. He had an idea to confirm and raised his hand to signal to the teacher to go to the restroom. Entering the restroom and closing the door, Yuji Boming's eyes switched to the wheel eye mode. He took out his phone and went to N Station to open a tutorial video posted by a well-known culinary expert known as the Peeling Fairy. After opening the eyes of the writing wheel, I gained the ability to replicate other people's movements and even physical skills. Yuji Boming wants to confirm whether it is practical in reality. Xuan Goyu's Sharingan stared closely at the peeling immortal's hands in the video, capturing every subtle movement. Less than 5 minutes later, Yuji Boming returned to the cooking classroom. Tanaka had already finished writing in the booklet and put it away. He picked up a carrot and casually carved it like playing, with a lewd smile on his face, seemingly carving a woman. Picking up the radish and kitchen knife, using the sword technique copied from the Sharingan, Yuji Boming's slender 5 fingers seemed to lightly caress his lover's skin, and his thumb gently played with it. The rough radish danced in a light and flexible circle in his palm. In just a few seconds, a long, thin radish skin as thin as cicada wings was completely peeled off by him. Place the peeled radish on the chopping board, chop off the root and head, leaving only the middle section. Cut in with the blade, and with a flick of the palm, the radish rolls out like a rolled paper. The long and thin pieces of radish are pulled out, and when hung on the hand, the skin can be clearly seen, indicating its thinness. The kitchen knife skillfully flipped up and down between his fingers, playing with a few beautiful flower knives. Only then did Yuji Boming proudly put away the knife. Writing wheel eyes is truly magical. With the writing wheel eye, any knife skill can be copied and pasted at a glance. Upon thinking about it, the enlightened Uchiha clan are all reserve chefs and skilled in fire escape. The Uchiha clan's kitchen may be very interesting. Tanaka Guang beside him was already stunned, and with a click, the carrot woman in his hand was cut off by his body. Yujibwa, is your knife skills so good? This big carrot can be peeled off with just a few strokes, and it's still so clean and neat. Teacher, come and take a look. Tanaka Guang's shouting quickly caught the attention of the whole class. The home economics teacher walked down from the stage and picked up the thin radish peel, which was as thin as cicada wings and had visible fingerprints, and couldn't help but ask. This student, is it cooking at home? The knife skills of Gue peel are even stronger than those of the teacher. My family is not in the culinary industry, it's just that I'm a bit interested in it and I'm just practicing and playing it myself. This level of cinnamon peel is not something that can be mastered through practice and play. Without more than 5 years of hard work, it is impossible to cut it so beautifully. This boy must have put in a lot of effort in secret. Is it because he wants to develop into a professional chef but is afraid of being known by others and opposed by his family, that he refuses to admit it? At this moment, the bell for the end of class rang in time, and the home economics teacher's mind turned to a few thoughts, his tone becoming even gentler. Your knife skills are very good, and you can also see how much effort you have put in for it. I will give your group an A+ for this class, and look forward to your future performance in the home economics class. Just kidding, Yuji Boming can't cook at all except for simply cooking instant noodles or fried rice with eggs. This amazing knife skill is just a temporary copy, and he only knows how to peel. If he were to do cutting and carving on the spot, it would not be much stronger than the knife skill that Tanaka Guango has chewed. It seems that after going back, we still need to use the Sharingan to replicate some commonly used knife skills, so as not to miss the filling next time. After class, Tanaka Guang approached with a playful smile and said, "Yuzibo, you are really hiding. Thanks to you, I also got an A in this class. When my confidential information is collected and organized, I will definitely let you see it first." "Forget it, I'm afraid I won't be able to enjoy it." Yuji Boming casually responded a few words, and Tanaka Guang asked again. "Yuzibo, are you interested in joining any club? I'm from the archery department, would you be interested in giving our club a try? The archery department is very handsome." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. 009 Bao Department. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9009 Bao Department. Archery Department. Yuji Boming looked at Tanaka Guang a few times in surprise, unable to imagine his archery posture. He casually said, "I'm a bit curious about archery, but I don't plan on joining the club." He believes that participating in club activities is meaningless and a waste of time. It's better to use this time to learn or practice ninjutsu. Have you forgotten, Yuzibo? The school motto of Shengongsi High School is both civil and military. In addition to academic performance, it also values performance in club activities. The school requires students to participate in at least one club activity. So much trouble. Since it's necessary to join a club, why not consider our archery department? I rose directly from junior high school and am familiar with the temple. After school, I will go to the archery department to see it first. If I don't like it, I will go to other clubs to see it." Yuji Boming thought for a moment and agreed, then. "I'll trouble you." He is not completely interested in Japanese-style club activities, but he is afraid of delaying his studies and cultivation. With a well-informed local leader like Tanaka Guang leading the way, he can also save some unnecessary trouble. The closing time of Shengongsi High School, like other schools, is 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Now is the beginning of the school year, and it is the best time for clubs to recruit new students. On both sides of the school road, you can see senior students distributing flyers, which looks very lively. Jiaziyuan. Jiaziyuan. Do you want to join us in advancing into Jiaziyuan? Sweat and burn youth, please make sure to come and see the athletics department. The tennis department is recruiting new players, with handsome seniors providing personal guidance. The guidance teacher, Teacher Judieo, is a beautiful woman. The archery department is located deep in the school, along a winding path at the end covered by greenery. The archery department is different from ordinary clubs in that it has very high requirements for the venue. Only in the corners of the campus can a large enough area be left as a dojo. Under the leadership of Tanaka Guang, Yuji Boming easily found the archery field. At the entrance of the archery field, he heard a crisp string sound of zheng, followed by a low and inaudible sound of bow entering the target. Taking off his shoes at the entrance, he walked into the archery arena wearing only socks and stepping on the Polonia floor. Yuji Boming looked curiously at the Gongdao dojo, which, like kendo, is a sport with Japanese characteristics. It was his first time at the Gongdao dojo. Entering from the entrance, there is a row of bows and arrows of various weights and sizes placed vertically on the opposite wall. The shooting range is perpendicular to the direction of the entrance. The shooting range is visually 30 meters long and 20 meters wide, accounting for 2/3 of the dojo area. On the wall opposite the shooting range, there are several calligraphy and banners hanging. From top to bottom, there are truth, goodness, and beauty, and true shooting must hit. At the bottom, there are the 8 archery rituals that every archery field must have, which are a brief diagram and introduction of the 8 movements of archery. A single ponytail girl wearing a white and black bow and hakama costume, with a graceful posture of drawing arrows and strings, and behind her were several obviously visiting freshmen kneeling on the floor in a seated position. Bowing doesn't require too much force. Raise the arrow high, and archery in bowing relies on the muscles in the back to pull down the bowstring. It's okay if the girl's strength is not too strong, and her arms don't actually need to exert too much force. The single ponytail girl pulled the bowstring behind her ear, completed the pull, and then aimed the arrow at the target. Just now, a classmate asked me if nearsightedness has an impact on archery. In fact, archery does not have strict requirements for vision. Archery focuses on posture, and once the posture is stable and the method of force is found correctly, hitting the target will be natural. This is the saying that a straight shot must hit. Just like this. The girl with a single ponytail shot an arrow, although it did not hit the bull's eye, it also hit the inside of the target. Her movements are like flowing clouds and flowing water, and her archery posture is elegant and beautiful. The girl's skin is white and beautiful, and she can reach her waist. Her black hair, like a crow feather, is tied into a ponytail and hangs behind her, with a pure temperament. She is already close to the type of Yamato Fuko, which makes her appear more elegant. The visiting freshmen all applauded and cheered loudly. Great, the girls in the archery department look very high. Level. The hakama costume is the highest level bonus, just like the witch costume, it can at least add 20% charm. Tanaka Guang nudged Yuji Boming with his elbow and whispered to him. The head of the archery department, Yasushi, a sophomore, can't tell from her wearing a chest protector right now. In fact, I've seen her wearing regular clothes, at least uniform, black long straight sports girl, Yamato Fuko, with multiple attributes. Yasushi is undoubtedly a level beautiful girl on my list. So, are you interested in joining the archery department now? Yuji Boming has become accustomed to Tanaka Guang's salty and wet speech and is too lazy to comment, but he has to admit that the girl's archery movements are very elegant. After shooting an arrow, be careful when the bowstring bounces back and hits the chest. Girls must remember to wear their chests, said Yasasaki, blushing with embarrassment. The archery department of the Shingon Temple does not have a far range, only a 28-meter close range. Do you see the wall behind the target, called unto, which is to prevent off-target shooting from flying out? Although the power of the bow is not great, the arrow is still very dangerous. If there are people on the archery, it is absolutely forbidden to hang it, and it is strictly forbidden to point arrows at people and shoot in front of others. Does anyone want to give it a try? We have lightweight bows for beginners, ranging from 6 kilograms to 10 kilograms. I'll do it. As for the common bow, there's no need. I have my own matching bow and arrow. Tanaka Guang stood up directly, carrying his own black arrow bag that was over 2 meters high. It's Tanaka. Although Tanaka is also a freshman in first grade, he has already submitted an application to join the department. It seems that he has experience in archery practice, so you can come. Yasushi forced a smile and his eyes flickered. She still remembers the lewd gaze of Tanaka Guang when he stole a peek yesterday. It was like a scavenger. If it weren't for the shortage of people in the male team of the archery department, she wouldn't have considered such people. Tanaka Guang walked to the shooting range and took out the bows and arrows from his arrow bag. His fiberglass reinforced plastic and bow were obviously much more advanced than the bamboo public bow in the dojo. After holding the bow, Tanaka changed his previous frivolous and slippery expression and became more serious. From the start of the hand and step, to the moment when he was about to strike the strings, his movements were done in a methodical and meticulous manner. Although her posture is not as graceful as Yasushi's, it is clearly not at the level of a beginner. Yuji Boming was secretly surprised, thinking that Tanaka Guang was coming for the beautiful girl in the archery department. Unexpectedly, he still had some confidence in himself. You can't judge a person by their appearance, but can we hit the target? With a crisp sound of the arrow hitting the target, Tanaka Guang's arrow not only hit the target, but also hit the center of the target. How about my archery? Cheer for me. Tanaka Guang lowered his bow and made a somewhat coquettish pose, with a proud expression on his face. Yuji Boming's face was a bit strange. Although this arrow hit the bullseye, it was a bit wrong. Tanaka's luck is really good, but unfortunately you were in the third position and hit the target in the fourth position, which is not worth a point. A hint of smile appeared on Yasushi's face. It was common for her to miss a target while shooting, but it was the first time she had seen an arrow shoot at a target in another position. It's really stupid. Tanaka Guang's face was also extremely thick, and he couldn't see any embarrassment. He shook his head and sighed, I'm not in good form today. I didn't show my true strength in archery after years of immersion. Anyway, today is not the time for archery. Yuzhibo, I'll lend you my bow and protective gear. Come and give it a try. End of this chapter. Chapter 10, Chapter 010. Positive shooting must hit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10, Chapter 010. Positive shooting must hit, is that okay? Senior, I'll be the next one to pull the bow, but I'm a real layman and I know almost nothing about the rules of archery. Yuji Boming turned his head to look at Yasushi. Of course, everyone starts from the basics. Yasushi looked at Yuzhibo Ming and his eyes lit up. Yuzhibo, since you're here to experience the Gongdao department, do you want to try our hakama clothes? Isn't it too troublesome? No, the hakama costume is one of the biggest characteristics of archery. How can one truly experience archery if they have only shot arrows without passing through the hakama costume? It was really difficult to be enthusiastic, but a few minutes later, Yuji Boming had already changed his clothes and stood on the dojo. Wearing a white and black hakama suit on the tall and slender body of Uchiha Ming, he appeared particularly heroic. Some girls had already taken out their phones to secretly take pictures of him. Indeed, it fits as well as imagined. I dare say that all clubs still have the best-looking uniforms from our archery department. Yasushi looked at Yukibo Ming with satisfaction and said proudly. It's 10 kilograms, which is just right for a new boy. Yasushi plucked Tanaka Guang's bowstring, tried it, and then handed the bow to Uchihiro. Then let Yuzhibo stretch his arms and select the appropriate length of arrow for him based on his arm length. Gongdao requires self-preparation of 3 things. A bow, an arrow, and finally a protective track. The heel looks like a leather glove that exposes the little finger of the ring finger, similar to a trigger finger, to prevent the bowstring from bouncing back and scratching the finger after archery. Yuzhibo, the first step in archery is called foot stepping. If you step too small like me, it's not easy to stabilize your upper body, and the arrow you shoot will definitely tilt. Yes, I use a 1-foot open style, that's it. Stand back a bit. No, it's wrong for you to use your hand to shoot an arrow like this. Then raise the arched bow and arrow above your head, pull it apart, and align your gaze with the target. The arrow should be level with your gaze. Your move is, careless. Looking at Uchiha's awkward and clumsy movements, Yasushi didn't know why and became more and more enthusiastic in guiding him. Is it difficult for Master Basei to have the problem of being a good teacher? Under the guidance of Hachisaki's hands, Uchiha Masayoshi imitated her archery movements step by step. In the end, he only imitated her movements, and from the perspective of posture standards, even Tanaka Mitsunari was more qualified than him. However, there is no other way. Although the 8 archery techniques only have 8 movements, each action has many subtle details. Even if the eyes see and understand, the body often says it cannot keep up. Alright, that's about it. Finally, you can try shooting an arrow yourself. Yuji Boming slowly exhaled a long breath and followed the steps taught before, stepping on the bow, constructing the body, loading the arrow, lifting the bow, and pulling the bow until the bowstring was fully drawn and ready to shoot. The arrow pointed straight at the target 20.8 meters away. Watching Yuji Boming make many basic mistakes in his shooting posture, his movements are fierce, and Yasushi shook his head in disappointment. This is not acceptable, as this arrow will inevitably miss the target. However, she quickly regained her senses again. From her previous movements, it was evident that Yuzhibo was an outsider who had just encountered archery for the first time. Mis-shooting was inevitable, and hitting was an unexpected event. She had also trained for a long time before hitting the target for the first time. You can't expect too much from newcomers. As expected, Yuji Boming threw his arrow high, crossed the target, and directly shot onto Untu. But Yuji Boming's face did not show any disappointment, but rather a thoughtful expression. What a pity, it's just a little short, Tanaka shouted loudly. This statement made even Yuji Boming blush a bit. It was clear that the distance between this arrow and the target was very obvious, and there was no trace of it. Even if someone is selected for archery, it is impossible for them to hit the target with the first arrow. Your arm is too tight with this arrow, and the force on your waist is not right. Although you have more strength, you lack a bit of delicacy. However, your first attempt to shoot the arrow well is considered enough. You can try practicing again, Junior Uchiha, and I will correct your posture, said Yasushi with a smile, taking another arrow and handing it over. Who knew that Yuji Boming shook his head and did not go to pick it up, but returned the bow to Tanaka Guang. Thank you, senior, but it's not necessary because I'm bound to miss now. Uchiha Jr., it doesn't matter if you can't hit the target. Archery is not about pursuing the target, it's an art. In addition to pursuing accuracy, it values truth, goodness, and beauty more. Yasushi said seriously. The correct posture is true, and shooting accurately is true. Beauty is expressed through the correct salute, and the bow itself is full of beauty. However, what is more important is the solemnity of the action, the elegance of the shooting posture, and the beauty it brings to the audience. Even if you shoot accurately in a formal competition, the posture is completely unacceptable, and if you go on stage, you will still be judged out. The archery competition is not a bodybuilding competition. No matter how beautiful the posture is, it's useless if you can't hit the target. In shooting sports, just shoot accurately. What's the use of all these fancy things? Tanaka Guang couldn't help but complain, and Yasushi's smile suddenly couldn't stop. Just as he was about to say something, Uchiha Minamoto stared intently at the banner on the dojo that read, "A shot must hit," and instinctively said. A straight shot must hit the target. If in archery, as my predecessors have said, the standard shooting posture can hit the target, then it would be very easy for me to hit. Ha, is that so? Yasushi's smile, which was already forced enough, was about to last, and even a hint of anger appeared on her pretty face. This is the anger that all insiders will feel when they see laypeople pointing and boasting in their familiar fields. Is it true that a newcomer who is not even a beginner dares to boast about such grandeur has no self-awareness? Yuji Boming knew what Yasushi was thinking when he saw her expression. But for Yuji Boming, who has a writing will eye, this is not just bragging. After opening Air Goyu, the Sharingan possesses the ability to replicate body techniques, even various body techniques refined from the ninja world for life and death battles can be replicated. It is not a problem to use a family-style archery posture in competitions. The atmosphere afterwards was naturally not so friendly. Yasushi did not invite him to join the Takudo department, but politely and distantly invited him to continue visiting the performance of the Takudo department. Since the other party did not issue an order to expel the guest, Yuji Boming took off his hakama jacket and returned it, then sat in the back row again to visit and took out his phone. When did you still use traditional methods to practice archery? Now that it is the internet age, of course, you need to copy and paste. End of this chapter.